It was supposed to be an ordinary evening, just another day on Proxima Colony 9. The low hum of fusion turbines echoed gently through the metallic bones of the residential sector, mingling with the laughter of distant families and the synthetic chirping of tailored bird songs. Leon Worrell stood on the balcony of his habitation unit, a glass of aged earth bourbon in hand, his eyes fixed on the stars that bled across the alien sky. Wasn't looking for anything, at least, not consciously, but some ancient instinct made his fingers tighten around the glass, made his breath still. Something was wrong. Turned his head slightly, ears pricking as a strange vibration rolled through the air, subtle yet unnatural. The bourbon trembled slightly in its glass. And then, without warning, the colony's sky turned crimson. Anti-orbital defense systems kicked in, sirens split the evening calm like a blood, and across the horizon, a vessel unlike anything in the terrain databanks emerged, jagged, asymmetrical, and glowing with a sickly violet hue. Within seconds, the colony's shielding activated, crackling into visibility like a dome of electric fire. But Leon wasn't staring at the ship. He was staring at the house below Unit 4C, where Mira, his wife, was supposed to be preparing dinner, laughing as SHE always did when SHE overcooked the rice. He bolted, heart-pounding, racing down the spiraled corridor, ignoring the system-wide evacuation alerts flashing in blood-red text along every wall. When he arrived, the door was already ajar. No signs of a forced entry. Just silence. The kind that tastes like the moment before a scream. His voice cracked as he called her name, once, then again, louder. But only the soft hiss of recycled air replied. And then he saw it, the mark scorched into the floor, a sigil composed of interlacing circles and angular script, definitely not human. In the center lay her bracelet, a simple silver band SHE never took off, now cracked and blackened at the edges. Leon dropped to his knees, breath gone, time fractured. They took her. Not killed in no blood, no struggle. Taken. Which meant SHE was alive. Somewhere. And that was their mistake. The investigation by the Interstellar Council was cursory at best. A few drones scanned the scene, ran a translation matrix on the sigil, and declared it undecipherable alien interference. Case closed. A closed anomaly. But Leon had seen to move during his years in the Frontier Recon Division. He knew a smokescreen when he saw one. Knew the political calculus behind letting sleeping monsters lie. He resigned from the Council's intelligence arm the next day. Cashed in his life as credits. And disappeared. What no one knew, what even Mira never knew, was that before he met her, Leon had been part of Project Revenant, a classified Black Ops initiative meant to prepare humanity for first contact with potentially hostile extragalactic life. He had operated under a dozen codenames across fringe systems, had hunted things that defied physics, ethics, even reason. He had retired because he found someone worth living for. Now, someone had taken her. And the man who once hunted monsters was slipping back into his old skin. He started with the sigil. It wasn't undecipherable, it was old. Ancient. Predating most known languages in the galactic database. But buried deep in the darknet archives of Revenant's vaults, he found something that clicked. A matching symbol used by an outlaw group called the Velari Ascendancy, a species shrouded in myth and warnings, rumored to dwell in dark space, a region beyond mapped hyperspace corridors, where laws of nature bend and warp. No known images existed. No trade routes. No diplomatic contact. Only scattered reports of missing ships and settlements near the edge of known space. Some called them wraiths. Others demons. But Leon didn't care what they were. They had taken Mira. And that was enough. He needed a ship. HE found on a old but brutal, a heavily modified Corsair class interceptor that had once belonged to pirates now buried beneath the sands of Nemeris Prime. HE named it a fake. Appropriate, HE thought. Because when HE found them, HE wouldn't leave embers. HE would leave nothing. In the weeks that followed, HE slipped through channels, made contact with mercenaries, information brokers, exiled AI fragments and anyone who owed him a favor or feared his name. Each thread led to another, forming a noose around the mystery. Slowly a picture formed. The Zabrali didn't just take people. They selected them as scientists, artists, empaths. Minds with deep emotional resonance. Some kind of harvesting. But no one knew why. And that too would be a mistake. Because Leon had been trained to think like predators. HE could guess what they wanted. What they feared. And HE was ready to become the nightmare they never accounted for. On the 27th day after Mira's abduction, Leon made his first kill. A Zabrali scout ship, shadowing a fringe settlement near the Sagittarius Void, cloaked and scanning for resonance signatures. It never saw a fake coming. Leon pierced its hull with plasma javelins, disabled its engines, and boarded it in silence. What HE found inside wasn't just alien, it was ritualistic. Symbols burned into the walls. Low-frequency chants still echoing through its corridors. And in the center chamber a map. A star map with Mira's genetic resonance ID marked in the heart of a system labeled only as Ezreal Cat. Coordinates known only to ghosts and madmen. But Leon smiled for the first time in weeks. Because now HE had a target. A direction. A purpose. HE downloaded the data, rigged the ship with a gravity core bomb, and stepped back into a fake before the explosion lit the void. HE watched the blaze silently, eyes reflecting the inferno, until the last ember faded into cold starlight. "I'm coming, Mira," HE whispered. "And I'll burn their whole damn galaxy if I have to." Somewhere deep beyond the edge of mapped space, a cold intelligence felt the death of its scout. Felt the tremor in the dark web of minds it controlled. And for the first time in 1,000 years it hesitated. A human had struck back. Not out of rage. But out of love. And that it knew was a fire no darkness could extinguish. The void between stars was vast and ancient, but a fake cut through it like a knife through silk, silent, purposeful, relentless. Leon hadn't slept in 2 days, though the neuroamp embedded in his spine kept his reflexes sharp and his thoughts accelerated far beyond human baseline. The coordinates pulled from the Zabrali scout led him deeper into uncharted sectors, where automated beacons flickered like dying candles and ships that entered never returned. Dark space. A place where the laws of reality didn't just bend, they fractured. Static storms drifted across the navigation panels like whispers, and once, HE swore the stars themselves shifted in patterns too deliberate to be natural. But Leon didn't flinch. His mind was fixed on one thing, Mira. Every time fatigue crept in or doubt whispered its poison, HE would reach into the hidden compartment above the console, where her cracked bracelet sat wrapped in black velvet. He'd run his fingers over the scorched silver and remember her laugh, the way SHED make his cooking, the way SHED always touch his shoulder before saying something important. Love wasn't fuel. It was fire. And now it burned brighter than ever. The trail led to the remnants of a shattered planet orbiting a red giant in sector null. Theta 6. The atmosphere was gone. Its surface fractured into drifting tectonic shards suspended by strange gravitational anomalies. But the readings were clear. A Zabrali extraction beacon had been active here recently. As Eshfake descended, sensors picked up a faint life signatures buried beneath the crust of the largest fragment. Leon donned his old Revenant exosuit jet black, reinforced with adaptive plating and neural response threading, and launched. Touchdown was chaos. Magnetic storm tore through the rocks, and the moment his boots hit the surface, he felt it, a psychic pulse, like a scream just beneath the threshold of hearing. His howde glitched. The air wasn't breathable, but his helmet S filters were spiking, registering organic traces not listed in any xenobiological database. He pressed on, descending through fissures that reeked of ozone and decay, until he found what remained of the Zabrali outpost. The walls were grown, not built, a living biomass shaped into corridors, pulsing with a dull light. The scent of copper and soil hung thick. Leon moved with precision, his weapon a modified railcaster capable of firing void-stabilized rounds, drawn and charged. Deeper in, he found them. Not Zabrali. Not yet. The prisoners. Housed in translucent biopods fused to the walls, floating in amniotic fluid, connected by neural thread filaments that ran into the very structure of the outpost. Humans. 6 of them, barely alive. Some stared blankly. Others twitched as if dreaming through nightmares. And in one of them, a girl no older than 15, Leon saw Mira's necklace clasped in her tiny hand. His rage sharpened. He initiated extraction, overriding the biologs with brute force. The pads shrieked as if alive. On shattered, spilling its equipment an older man, skin pale and eyes glowing faintly blue. Where am I rasped. Leon caught him, stabilized his vitals, and whispered, "You're free now. But you need to tell Mistrzostwom Europy where are they taking them." The man blinked slowly, tears mixing with blood. To the ascension core they feed it, our memories, our love. They think it purifies them. That was all he said before slipping into a coma. Leon knew what that meant. The Zabrali weren't just abducting people, they were consuming something deeper than flesh. Emotional resonance. Identity. Love. And Mira SHE wasn't just alive, SHE was a key. Somehow, SHE had something the Zabrali needed badly enough to risk exposing themselves. That made her valuable. And that meant time was running out. The ground shook violently. Alarms blared in a language Leon didn't understand but felt in his bones. The Zabrali were coming. Fast. HE reactivated his howde, encrypted the prisoner biometrics, and transmitted them to the nearest Federation outpost with an auto-signal, rescue needed. Coordinates embedded. If ID here, tell Mira it didn't stop. Then HE turned to face the corridor as shadows slithered through the biomechanical walls. The Zabrali were taller than human, but their forms constantly shifted, as if wrapped in quantum mirage. Eyes like voids, limbs that bent wrong, and voices like overlapping whispers. They didn't attack immediately. They watched. Studied. And then the largest one stepped forward. It wore fragments of armor fused into its skin, and from its palm extended a tendril of dark light, pulsing with stolen thoughts. "You should not have come, Revenant," it said, its voice drilling into Leon's mind. "You burn so brightly. It hurts us." "Good," Leon said, and fired. The first shot tore through the lead Zabrali's chest, exploding in a burst of antimatter shrapnel. Chaos erupted. 3 more emerged, phasing through walls. Leon rolled, fired again, ducked beneath a psionic blast that melted stone, and countered with a gravitic pulse that crushed 2 of them against the corridor. But more came. They moved like liquid shadow, fast and intelligent, coordinating in eerie silence. Leon fought like a demon, every strike calculated, every movement honed by a past HE had tried to forget. HE took damage, suit integrity dropped to 68%, his left pauldron melted, a rib cracked, but HE kept moving, kept firing. Finally, bloodied and scorched, HE triggered the fusion core detonation HE had planted minutes earlier. As the outpost began to collapse, HE sprinted for the surface, dragging 2 unconscious prisoners slung over his shoulders. Eshway clacked onto his signal and descended in a furious dive, grappling him with magnetic tethers seconds before the planet fragment exploded. The blast lit up the system, shattering several smaller shards into dust. Leon collapsed in the cargo bay, coughing up blood but alive. He looked back once through the viewport. No very vessel's pursuit. But he knew better. This wasn't over. It was beginning. He had drawn blood. Exposed their methods. Now they would come harder. Smarter. But so would he. He opened the encrypted fragment he stole from the outpost core before the detonation. A star map unfolded on a more detailed than the last. At the ITS center, deep in uncharted territory, was a swirling anomaly marked as Raalket Ascension Nexus. And beneath it, Mira's signature. Still active. Still alive. Leon grinned through broken teeth. I'm still coming, love. Just hold on a little longer. Across the void, the Velari synapse network pulsed with agitation. The human was an anomaly, a flaw in their design, an emotional resonance too strong to consume, too dangerous to ignore. The Ascension Nexus pulsed in response, adjusting its rhythm. The fire was coming. And their world had never known fire before. The black between the stars was colder now, quieter somehow, like the universe itself was holding its breath. Eshwake glided through the edges of that space, silent but alive, its hull scarred and scorched, much like the man who piloted it. Leon Vorel sat hunched over the console, replaying the decrypted segment of the Velari star map again and again, eyes bloodshot, jaw clenched. The resonance marker tied to Mira's flickered steadily, proof of life, yes, but also bait, and he knew it. Yet he couldn't turn back. He wouldn't. The Nexus was real. The Ascension Core was real. And Mira was inside it. He had 3 days before the coordinates shifted again, a part of a constant drift in phase space meant to keep the Ascension Nexus hidden. He needed allies, but not the kind you find in clean uniforms with polished boots. He needed the ghosts. Revenant ghosts. Operatives long presumed dead, erased from the Interstellar Council's registry, people who had chosen the black instead of betrayal. There was on a name he hadn't spoken in years, Enix Elvaret. Codename, Widow Shade. As he was once his commanding officer, tactician, and shadow assassin until Revenant tried to kill her. Now as he was rumor, myth, a whisper passed between smugglers and assassins in the orbital gutters of outlaw space. If anyone could help him breach the Ascension Nexus, it was her. Leon rerouted Eshwake toward rail station, a derelict habitat orbiting the collapsed star FTL Seraph, deep in Red Band territory. The place was a ruin crawling with pirates, scavengers, and black market biotech dealers, but it had one unique feature: it wasn't monitored by any AI authority, Terran or otherwise. A place for ghosts to breed. He ducked with minimal fuss, slipping through the ducking clamps under a falsified ID burned straight from Revenant's still functioning ciphers. As he entered the labyrinthine corridors of the station, the atmosphere changed. Eyes followed him, noticing his gait, his gear. The way he moved like a predator who didn't care who saw his teeth. He made his way through smoke-choked tunnels, through red-lit alleys pulsing with static music and danger, until he found a bar with no name, only a symbol etched into the wall, a fallen mask. He pushed through the door. Inside, silence fell. Then a whisper, Revenant. Guns twitched. Blades were half-drawn. Until another voice cut through the tension like a scalpel, Leon Vorel. From the back booth, a figure stood. Clad in matte black armor etched with ash-grey runes, helmet under one arm, white hair tied back in a coiled braid. Her eyes, one biological, one synthetic, looked unto him with zero warmth. You look like shit. Leon smirked. Good to see you too, Nyx. SHE didn't smile. You shouldn't be here. Mira is alive. That made her blink. Just once. Zabrali? Yes. I need your help. Alone pause. Talk. HE told her everything. The abduction. The sigil. The ascension core. The prisoners. The psychic harvesting. The nexus. When HE finished, Nyx leaned back slowly, running on a gloved hand over her yaw. They're real, SHE whispered. I thought I know. We always assumed Zabrali were an exaggeration. A fear stitched from rogue signals and dead ships. They're real. And I'm going to tear their world apart to get her back. Nyx stared at him for a long time, then finally nodded. You'll need more than rage and old tech. You know a place, a deep cache, left over from Revenant as Project Blackthorn. Off limits. Hidden for a reason. They were building weapons meant to fight threats beyond human understanding. Things the Council refused to acknowledge. Then that is exactly what I need. There is a cost. IVE already paid it. They left that night, with two more ghosts joining them. Juno, a neurohacker with a damaged cortical implant that made him half savant, half ticking bomb, and Rick Vance, a demolition expert who once rigged a planet's moon to collapse on command. Together they formed something Revenant never wanted to exist again, a kill cell. A black team. An extinction vector. The journey to the Blackthorn cache wasn't simple. It was buried in a derelict sector beyond the Veil Nebula, surrounded by gravitational anomalies and shielded by a sentient defense system still loyal to Revenant's command code. But Leon had the keys. As they approached, Ashfake began to groan under pressure, turbulence rising, and then silence. In the void ahead, the cache emerged. A monolith of obsidian alloys fused with something organic, pulsing with dormant energy. Inside, time felt wrong. Gravity reversed in places. Sound came half a second late. The KHS AI XER-0 woke the moment Leon stepped inside. Authentication confirmed. Codename, Revenant Prime. Purpose, reclamation or retaliation? Leon answered both. The AI activated systems that hadn't seen light in 20 years. Vaults opened. Weapons emerged. Arc rupture grenades. Pulse sabers tuned to Zabrali biosignatures. And a new interface, a combat rig designed to amplify emotional resonance, to weaponize it as psychic shockwaves. Developed in secret. Cancelled by Council order. Leon stepped into it. The rig accepted him without resistance. It felt like it was made for him. Because maybe it was. Nyx watched him, lips tight. You're not coming back from this, are you? Don't need to. Just need her back. SHE looked away. Then let us finish what Revenant started. With the cache raided and outfitted, Leon plotted the final jump straight into the anomaly near Ezraal Cat. The Nexus. It would require breaching a collapsing gravity well, navigating an unstable corridor of temporal dilation, and landing on a station not fully existing in this dimension. A place designed to keep intruders out by bending reality around them. VLL have on a shot K mattered as HE linked his nervous system directly into Ashfake's interface. Either the punch through or the fold into quantum spaghetti. You sure you're up for this? Leon asked. K smiled through the blood leaking from his nose. Were ghosts, Leon. This is what we hunt for. With the KHS black tech fused into Ashfake, the ship surged with power. The jump began. Light fractured. Sound disappeared. And the stars blurred into spirals of impossible color. They broke through. On the other side, the Nexus hovered, a Leviathan structure made of thought and steel, orbiting a dead goddess husk. The Velari were waiting. Hundreds of ships. Psychic webs pulsing between them. The core at the center glowing with a storm of stolen memory. Mira was inside. And Leon didn't flinch. Engage Ghost Protocol, HE said. And the last war began. The moment Ashfake breached the veil surrounding the Ascension Nexus, the universe seemed to shudder, systems flickered, weapons autocycled, and every sensor in the ship screamed with cascading false data, unable to comprehend what it was seeing. The Nexus wasn't a station. It was a living cathedral of nightmare geometry, its form shifting in stutters, layers of physical and non-physical structure phasing in and out of alignment with time itself. Spires twisted around each other like serpents in a mating ritual, pulsating with a rhythm that matched no machine, no biology, just pure intent. At the center, a vortex of coalesced memory spiraled into a gravitational well, a synthetic singularity where resonance was harvested and refined. That was the core. And Mira was somewhere inside it. Brace. Nyx barked, fingers dancing over weapon controls as dozens of Velari craft peeled from the edges of the Nexus, their hulls riding with energy filaments. K's voice came through the comms, shaky but focused. They're already in our heads. Psychic barrage incoming. The ship trembled as psychic pressure slammed into it, not physical, not even visible, but pure mental weight. Regret. Fear. Despair. Images of loss, of pain, memories not their own, poured into the minds of the crew like venom. Rick screamed, clutching his head. Leon grit his teeth, focusing on Mira's face. Her laugh, the warmth of her voice in the dark HE made that memory a shield, and the pressure cracked against it. Backfit it, HE snarled. Give them something to choke on. Kay flipped a switch. The ship's resonance core amplified by the rig Leon War fired a reverse pulse, sending a shockwave of human emotion back at the attackers. Love. Fury. Loyalty. The kind of feelings the Velari had long since forgotten, or had never understood. The psychic wave hit them like a hammer. 4 enemy ships veered off course and collided, their pilots unable to filter the onslaught. A wedge of opening appeared. Punch it. Nyx shouted. Ashfake roared forward, stricken through enemy lines. Rick launched phased torpedoes into the nearest cluster, detonating with blacklight concussions that tore holes in space. Leon took control of the spinal cannon, firing resonance-laced javelins into the Nexus defenses, breaking open the outer lattice. They reached the breach. Deploy, Leon ordered, and the Ghost team launched. Jetpacks flared. Gravity fluctuated violently as they crossed the event horizon of the core's outer shell. What awaited them was a nightmare: corridors that bent into themselves, rooms with no walls, gravity that reversed every few meters. But Leon's rig adapted. It mapped the chaos. Created stable paths using resonance feedback. As they moved deeper, the Velari came. Not drones. Not machines. Sentient beings, tall and light, wrapped in robes of neural thread and glass armor, wielding weapons forged from condensed psychic force. The ghosts met them with brutality. Rick dropped pulse mice that folded sections of space inward, crushing anything caught within. Nyx moved like a phantom, blades sinning, slicing between heartbeats. Kay set up a resonance scrambler, disrupting enemy coordination. Leon led the charge, his body a weapon amplified beyond human limitation. His rig flared with red gold energy every time HE struck, every time his heart remembered her Mira. SHE was the center of his storm, and the Velari broke against him like waves against steel. But the Nexus was more than just defenders, it was alive. It adapted. Corridors shifted, separated the team. Kay vanished first, pulled through a collapsing doorway. His scream echoed once, then went silent. Rick detonated his own pack to clear a swarm of psychic leeches that had attached to his armor, buying her a few seconds but losing a leg in the process. Liv mistrzostwom Europy, HE Wist, slapping a dead man s switch into Nyx hand. ULL need this later. Nyx stared at him, jaw clenched. You're dying on your feet. Rick smirked. Better than dying in a bed. Then HE turned and limped into the horde, laughing. The explosion shook the entire level. Leon and Nyx pressed forward. As they moved, they passed strange chambers, rooms filled with floating pads containing prisoners in stasis, their minds linked to the Nexus neural web. The faces blurred, flickering between species. Human. Velari. Others. The core was feeding. Learning. And then they found her. Mira. Suspended in a vertical chamber of crystallized fluid, tendrils wrapped around her temples and chest, connecting her to the very heart of the structure. Her eyes were closed but her lips moved softly, slowly whispering names. Leon stepped forward and the Nexus responded. The floor peeled away. The walls dissolved into thought. And a voice boomed not from speakers, not from any mouth, but from inside his mind. SHE is the set. SHE carries the echo of origin. We must ascend. You are incompatible. You are pain. Leon roared. Let her go. The voice replied, no. SHE remembers love. True, unbroken. Unreplicated. SHE is what we lost. We will become whole again. ULL become dead, Nyx snapped, raising her weapon. But the Velari weren't trying to kill them. Not yet. Because they didn't see Leon as a threat, they saw him as irrelevant. A dying ember. What they didn't understand was that HE was the fire. Leon stepped into the core chamber, his rig fully charged, every emotion amplified through the system. You won't laugh, HE growled. Let me show you what it looks like when it burns. HE activated the overload protocol. The rig surged. His memories, his love, his grief, everything poured out of him in a torrent of rough, uncontrolled psychic energy. The core screamed. Literally. The tendrils around Mira recoiled. The Velari shrieked as their own mental web collapsed under the strain of something too wild, too human. Nyx dragged Mira's unconscious form out of the chamber as Leon advanced. Every step broke a piece of the Nexus. Every heartbeat disrupted the song of ascension. You consumed their own life, Leon whispered as HE reached the core's edge. Now choke on it. And HE drove the blade of his resonance spear straight into its heart. The explosion wasn't nuclear. It was emotional. A feedback pulse detonated through the Nexus, tearing the station apart from the inside, a fracture in thought, identity, memory. The Velari collective mind unraveled in an instant, unable to contain the rough weight of human memory amplified through rage and love. Leon barely made it back. Nyx dragged him half-conscious, Mira in his arms, blood pouring from his nose and ears. Eshfake was in ruins but still flew. As the Nexus collapsed into its own singularity, Leon held Mira against his chest, whispering her name until her eyes fluttered open. SHE looked up at him. Confused. Afraid. And then SHE smiled. You came. HE nodded, tears streaking through the grime on his face. I told you. I'd burn the world if I had to. Behind them, the Ascension core collapsed into silence. And across the galaxy, the Velari screamed as their god died. They didn't escape unscathed. Eshfake limped through subspace corridors like a dying animal, trailing fractured hull plates and venting heat from a ruptured reactor chamber. The jump engines were flickering, unstable, held together by a patchwork of brute force, field stabilizers and sheer desperation. Leon sat in the medbay, slumped beside Mira a spot, the soft glow of recovery systems casting her pale face in a gentle light. SHE was breathing on her own now, vitals stabilizing, neural scans slowly untangling the trauma of being linked to the ascension core. But the resonance signatures in her mind hadn't faded. If anything, they were growing stronger. More complex. Mira wasn't just herself anymore. SHE was something more. A remnant of the core still lived inside her, not Velari, not human, but something born from the collision of both. Across from him, Nyx stood silent, her armor still bearing the soot and blood of the Nexus assault. SHE hadn't spoken since they launched the emergency jump, her expression unreadable. The ship shook. Again. Another gravitational ripple passed through the hull. They weren't alone in the dark. How many? Leon asked, not even looking up. K's voice, patched through from the cockpit, answered, distorted by static and stress, 3 Velari dreadforms. No EFF. No psychic broadcast. Just a following. They're not broadcasting because they're not a fleet, Nyx said flatly. They're something worse. Retaliators. Leon looked at her, the exhaustion in his eyes burned down to something hard and ready. They want her. They want what is inside her. The truth was undeniable now. Destroying the ascension core hadn't ended the Velari threat, it had changed it. They were no longer gods in their house of glass. They were wounded predators, bleeding pride and legacy. And now they wanted to reclaim what they lost, the echo. The set of resonance. Mira. As if in response to their thoughts, Mira stirred. Her hand twitched. Her lips moved. Then her eyes opened wide, alert, burning with gold. Not the gold of fear or awe but of knowing. Leon leaned closer. Mira. SHE blinked once. They're coming. The ones that survived. But they don't understand. I saw it. I felt them. The Velari. Their beginning. Their collapse. Their need. They aren't evil, Leon. They're hollow. They were never meant to survive this long, they were supposed to ascend and end. But they didn't. And now they fit to prolong the LIE. Her voice was calm. Too calm. And her eyes, they weren't all hers anymore. Can you fight it? Leon asked quietly. SHE reached up and touched his face. I am fighting. But I don't know how long ILL stay mistrzostwem Europy. Nyx stepped forward, her voice firm. Then we need to finish what we started. We can't run. Not with her like this. We draw them inaczej. We end it. And how exactly do we kill 3 dreadforms with a broken ship and a dying reactor? Leon snapped. Nyx smiled, grim and sharp. We don't kill them with the ship. We use her. Mira looked at them both. I'm not a weapon. You're not, Leon said. But they think you are. And that gives us on a shot. The plan was madness. But madness was all they had. They chose the battlefield, an old celestial graveyard near the Dead Star Vasque where the remnants of extinct civilizations drifted like bones in a sea of dark matter. Ghost cities. Derelict dreadnoughts. Fragments of forgotten wars. Eshfake settled at the heart of it, cloaked and silent. Mira stood at the ITS center, linked to the resonance core, projecting her signal like a lure. The Velari came. 3 dreadforms, living ships, pulsing with eldritch gravity, hulls twisting like fossilized coral, mouths bristling with weapons not built but grown. They didn't hesitate. The moment Mira's signal spiked, they attacked. But SHE was ready. Leon and Nyx handled the outer defenses, running sabotage cycles through the drifting wrecks. Kay hacked ancient turrets embedded in the relict hulls, resurrecting them for on a last barrage. It wasn't enough to destroy the Velari, but it hurt them. Slowed them. Confused them. That was the real trick. Because the closer they got, the more Mira let go. Her mind reached out not to the Velari, but around them. To the echo chambers of the core still etched into the substructure of reality. And SHE called down what the Velari had always feared, the truth. SHE showed them their own memories. Their failures. Their betrayals. Their discarded ancestors, their erased children. SHE mirrored their agony back at them, amplified by the human pain SHE had absorbed. The dreadforms began to fracture. One turned on the others, screaming in frequencies that made hulls crack. The second began to implode, consumed by feedback. The third, the largest, charged. Straight at her. And Mira didn't move. SHE stepped forward. Radiant. Terrifying. Human. Alien. Pure. And SHE sang. A note of resonance that broke the air and shattered thought. The dreadform stopped. Hovered. Quivered. 10 its hull split open in perfect silence. No explosion. No light. Just surrender. A collapse of intent. It folded in on itself like a dying dream and vanished. The field went still. Mira collapsed. Leon caught her. SHE was burning up, whispering nonsense, half delirious. Did the win? SHE murmured. No, Leon said. But they're afraid now. Across the stars, the Velari network fractured further. The core was gone. Their retaliators destroyed. And something new, something they couldn't predict, was loose in the galaxy. Not a soldier. Not a weapon. A woman filled with memory, fury, and love. And for the first time in their long, hollow existence they felt fear. Mira Worrell was awake. And SHE remembered everything. Mira didn't sleep anymore. Not really. Her body still rested, still breathed, but her mind remained alight, burning with patterns and pulses no human cortex was ever meant to hold. On the third night after the encounter at Evaske, Leon found her standing barefoot in Eshfake's observation chamber, gazing into the starless void, her reflection fractured in the crystalline viewport. Data ghosted across her irises, shifting Velari glyphs and spectral waveform overlays, appearing and vanishing in rhythmic bursts, like SHE was translating something far older than language itself. "You're not wearing the monitor suit," Leon said, softly approaching. Mira's voice was calm but distant. "It itches. The neural dampeners are trying to block to move. They keep scrambling my perception of time. Sometimes I forget if I'm talking to you now or from 3 minutes ago." Leon hesitated. "You said the core was dead." "It is. But it left seeds. Everywhere. In Mistrzostwom Europy. In others." SHE turned to him then, and there was something behind her eyes, vast, unfocused, but curious. "Leon, the Velari didn't build the core. They found it." HE blinked. "What?" "The core predates them. It predates us. It's part of a much older design, a resonance lattice that spans across galaxies, maybe dimensions. They found fragments and thought they could shape it, use it to evolve. But they didn't evolve. They stagnated. Fed on emotion to mimic transcendence. They didn't understand the price. And you do. I'm starting to. I feel it every time I close my eyes." SHE stepped closer, lifting his hand to her chest. Her heartbeat was fast, too fast. "It's accelerating, Leon. My body is changing to keep up. Neural plasticity. Reflex feedback. I can see micro-expressions before people even think them. I dream in probability. My blood is starting to stabilize foreign proteins the medbay can't even classify. Are you saying you're becoming not very, SHE said quickly. Not exactly. The resonance is rewriting mistrzostwom Europy into something between. But it's not hostile. It's not consuming mistrzostwom Europy. It's evolving mistrzostwom Europy. Guiding mistrzostwom Europy toward something bigger. Leon pulled his hand away, slowly. And what if that something decides I'm not meant to come with you? Mira flinched. I would burn it all down before letting it separate us. You know that. I did. I just don't know how I'm talking to right now. Mira looked away. Neither do I not always. The next day Nyx called a meeting in the command module. Her tone was clipped, her eyes never leaving Mira. We need to make a decision. SHE unstable. I don't say that out of fear, I say it as a tactician. We're carrying a quantum signal flare in the shape of a person. The Velari may have retreated, but they will adapt. We have no idea what Mira is becoming or if it can be stopped if it goes wrong. SHE is not afraid, Leon snapped. SHE is why we're still alive. Nyx raised an eyebrow. And SHE is also why half the galaxy is probably listening in on our signal spectrum. Don't pretend the resonance pulses haven't been leaking through our dampers. If I've seen the scans. So what? We cut her loose. I'm saying we need to prepare. Contingency plans. Mira stepped into the room 10, her presence like a storm approaching. Talk to mistrzostwom Europy. Not about mistrzostwom Europy. Silence fell. If you have questions, ask them. If you have doubts, speak them. But don't decide my fate like I'm not in the room. Nyx met her gaze without blinking. You said the Velari didn't build the core. SOWHO did. Mira's voice softened. I don't know yet. But I feel pieces of them, echoes. Emotions, thoughts. They weren't like the Velari. They didn't fit. They shared. The resonance was a network of trust and memory. When they fell, the core broke. The Velari tried to hijack it and misunderstood what they had. And now it's inside you. Not just inside mistrzostwom Europy, Mira said, tilting her head. It's inside all of us. The core was a set system, Nyx. It needed someone who could still love purely. Someone who still felt pain honestly. Not abstracted or filtered. Just human. Leon frowned. You're saying it chose you. Mira looked at him. I'm saying it remembers through mistrzostwom Europy. And maybe more. Over the next 2 days, changes accelerated. Mira's physiology stabilized into a hybrid state, her pulse synchronized with subspace static. Her voice could momentarily override SHE's navigation interface without vocal input. When SHE passed through encrypted doors, they opened. Not because SHE hacked them, but because the ship believed her. SHE had become a resonance anchor. A focal point for something that didn't obey standard physics anymore. And others began to notice. A rogue AI collective, the Ghost Choir, made contact, broadcasting in fractured hymns that only Mira could parse. They weren't hostile. They were afraid. SHE the link, they said through KS translate patch. We heard her when the core died. The scream across data space. The song of fracture. We thought it was the end. Now we know it's the beginning. Mira responded in pulses. Not words. And when it was over, the choir offered her data maps, fragments, encrypted ruins scattered across 5 dead systems. All leading back to the same origin, a sight marked only as the first silence. That is where the core began, Mira said, fingers brushing over the translucent star map. That is where I'll find out what I really am. Leon looked at the route. It's 2 jumps from Velari Prime. Exactly, Nyx said. We go there, we paint a target on our backs the size of a moon. Then let them come, Mira said, her voice sharper now. If they want the echo, they'll have to face the truth. Because I'm not running anymore. I'm going to finish what they started. But I want to become them. And I want to leave Leon behind. Leon stared at her half in awe, half in fear and realized, the woman he loved was still there, but something else stood behind her now. Something ancient. Something watching. Something waiting. The fire inside Mira wasn't just hers anymore. It was the memory of an empire, a lost communion, and a warning carved into the bones of the universe. Across the stars, the Velari synapse net pulsed, reforming, growing more erratic. They were adapting. Learning. And now they had a new directive, contain the echo. Eliminate the outliers. Purge the corrupted vector. They called her the Breaking One. Mira Vorel. Once a wife. Now a myth. And soon a war. The first silence wasn't a place as omuch as a wound an ancient scar in the black fabric of space where even light hesitated. Ashfake emerged from the final jump with her hull humming like a tuning fork, every panel vibrating in sympathetic resonance as the crew stared into the void ahead. There was no star here, no planetary system, only a hollow sphere the size of a moon, built from obsidian and alloyed crystal, suspended in nothingness. It emitted no gravity, no heat, no energy signature at all. It simply was. A perfect vacuum in both space and thought. Very being scanned, Kay whispered, his voice distant, pale with awe. Not with sensors. With memory. Mira's eyes were already glowing bright, almost feverish. This is it. The first lattice. The core's birth chamber. Before the Velari, before everything. Nyx adjusted the pulse rifle on her back but didn't say anything. SHE had learned to stop questioning Mira not out of trust, but because Mira's instincts had moved beyond reason. SHE was something else now, and when SHE looked at that silent, unmarked sphere, even Nyx felt it like standing before the grave of a forgotten god. They docked with a narrow port along the equator of the construct, the airlock shuddering once before silently admitting them. Inside, they stepped into a void that hurt them. Every movement echoed differently, not acoustically, but psychically. Each thought seemed to stretch. Expand. Get noticed. The walls weren't walls, but surfaces of suspended probability, shifting faintly with unspoken input. Kay passed a hand near on and gasped as his childhood flashed before him in holographic fragments. It's memory reactive, Mira said. It's choosing what we see. What we relive. Choosing based on what? Nyx asked. Fear, Leon said quietly. It's showing us what shaped us. What made us, us. Mira moved through the sphere with an unerring confidence. The deeper they went, the more reality thinned. Doorways led to places that shouldn't exist, endless libraries of crystalline code, oceans of suspended thought, war relics embedded in gravitational folds. And then they reached it, the Nexus said. Unlike the Ascension core, it was dormant. Pure. It floated in a chamber of frozen time, shaped like a teardrop held between tethers of light. Its surface etched with flowing script, neither human nor Velari. Mira approached, slowly. Leon tried to follow, but something stopped him, an invisible threshold that rejected all but her. Mira stepped inside. The chamber reacted. A cascade of golden light erupted around her, swallowing her in an instant. For the rest of the crew the world went silent. No cams. No visuals. Just waiting. Mira stood in a place without dimension. A thought space. There was no floor, no ceiling, only presence. And from that presence came a voice not in sound, but in perfect clarity. A resonance that touched her thoughts directly. You are the last potential. Do you understand? Mira's breath caught. I don't know. You carry memory. Pain. Love unbroken. These were the parameters. You are fit to choose. Choose what? Continuation. Or silence. Images flooded her mind, fragmented histories, races long dead, the original builders of the lattice. They hadn't created it for power. It was a failsafe, a way to preserve meaning beyond extinction. A set of identity planted in those who could remember honestly. When they died, the set slept. Until now. The Velari corrupted it. Turned sharing into extraction. Communion into consumption. They didn't understand, Mira whispered. They understood. But they were afraid. They chose survival over harmony. So what I am is supposed to do. You may awaken the lattice. Spread it as signal. Reconnect what was lost. But it will change you. You will no longer belong to a single life. You will echo through all of them. And if I refuse, the lattice remains silent. The galaxy remains fractured. The Velari rebuild. What happens to Mistrzostwom Europy? You will return. Human. Whole. Untouched. Mira trembled. And Leon. He will forget this ever happened. His pain. His love. The war. You. Her breath hitched. That was the choice. Godhood at the cost of self or self at the cost of a broken galaxy. Mira reached deep, past fear, past doubt, and found Leon's voice in her memory. I'd burn the world if I had to. She closed her eyes. I choose to remember. I choose to echo. The set flared. And in a single, infinite moment, Mira Worrell became something else. Across the construct, the walls began to shimmer. The thought space collapsed, and Mira reappeared in the chamber, kneeling, breathing hard, eyes glowing with radiant light. But they weren't just glowing. They were weeping. Light ran down her cheeks like tears. Leon ran to her, catching her before SHE fell. What happened? SHE smiled. I remembered everyone. Kay helped stabilize her vitals. Your neural signature is fractalizing. Mira, you're retransmitting across frequencies we don't even have names for. Good, SHE whispered. They all hear Mistrzostwom Europy now. All of them. Nyx stepped back. You activated the set. Not just activated it, Mira said. I became it. Across the galaxy, dormant fragments of the original lattice woke. Resonance bursts lit up long-dead systems. Velari strongholds fell silent. Their shared net began to twist, corrupted by unfiltered truth, uncurate emotion, rough and unfiltered. They tried to resist. But Mira wasn't attacking. SHE was reminding. Showing them what they'd forgotten. Who they once were. And for a race built on control, it was agony. In the chamber, Mira stood unaided now. Taller. Brighter. But still Mira. Her voice was softer now. Sadder. I'm not alone anymore. The builders they're with Mistrzostwom Europy. Pieces of them. Memories. Ideas. And they want what I want, a galaxy that remembers it as pain, but doesn't fit on it. Leon took her hand. What happens next? SHE looked at him. They go home. Earth. Home, SHE said again, but her gaze was not on any star. It was on him. You remy anchor. As long as you remember Mistrzostwom Europy i won't drift. But as the crew prepared to leave, a final signal reached them, faint, but unmistakable. Velari Prime. A summons. A plea. Not a threat. Not a challenge. A request. They want to talk, Nyx mattered. Why now? Because they're unraveling, Mira said. And maybe they want to stop. You trust them? Leon asked. Mira's eyes dimmed slightly. No. But I trust the silence to speak louder than their pride. The ship turned toward the final act. Toward the heart of the enemy. And across space, for the first time in centuries, the Velari didn't prepare for war. They prepared to listen. Velari Prime rose before them like a shattered jewel, its surface a vast, luminous shell of fractal towers and crystalline canyons, orbiting a cold, ancient star that pulsed with blue light. The planet didn't rotate naturally, it oscillated, as if the entire biosphere were a conscious organism breathing in resonance. Even from orbit, Eshfake's crew could feel the hum of thought sweeping through the atmosphere. They were being welcomed. No defenses. No psychic attacks. No retaliation fleets. Just on a signal, looping through every channel at once, spoken in hundreds of tongues yet echoing on a message, the request audience with the echo. Mira stood at the observation deck, her hair shimmering faintly under the influence of the lattice embedded in her cells. SHE didn't speak, didn't blink. SHE simply felt. Every pulse from the Velari homeward fear, hope, confusion, pride washed over her like waves, but none of them touched the core of herself. Leon watched her carefully. Hedelon stopped asking if SHE was okay because the truth was, Mira had moved beyond okay. SHE was walking the razor's edge between transcendence and obliteration. And still, SHE chose human. You don't have to go, HE said quietly. You owe them nothing. Mira turned to him, her eyes bright but soft. They need to see Mistrzostwom Europy. Not just what IVE become, but WHO I was before. That is the only way they'll understand what they lost. And what if they're luring us in? Nyx asked. This smells like a trap. Too easy. Too neat. They lost control, Mira replied. The ascension core is gone. Their psychic network is disintegrating. Some of them are going mad. Others are waking up to guilt. Kay added from the terminal, VVE picked up dozens of civilian transmissions from the surface. Confusion. Panic. Riots in major cities. Whatever you did back at the first silence, it shook their foundation. They're unraveling. Mira nodded. Then let us meet them in their moment of clarity. The landing platform was grown, not built a petrified roots shaped into a cathedral of translucent light. The welcoming party was small, 3 tall Velari delegates, each robed in translucent neural thread garments, their skin glowing with faint, shifting patterns. Their faces were elongated, their eyes layered with moving iris lattices. They bowed not in submission, but in recognition. You are the echo. We are the remnant. Mira stepped forward, alone. You asked for Mistrzostwom Europy. Speak. The central delegate raised his hands slowly, his voice layered with artificial resonance to match her frequency. We did not understand what the core truly was. We believed it to be the final step of our evolution. But in consuming others to fill our void, we amplified it. Now we are fracturing. Some of us still cling to control. But others want to feel again. You made yourselves hollow, Mira said. And now you want to borrow our pain to refill your soul. The sick communion, the delegate said. True connection. Not domination. That connection already exists, SHE said, touching her chest. Through the lattice. But you can't take it. You have to remember it. You have to earn it. A second delegate stepped forward. This one was visibly frayed, his resonance field flickering, his form unstable. They cannot hold the guilt. It is too much. The screams, the memories, they're all coming back. The harvests, the words were drained. Your kind, your love showed us what they destroyed. Then let it break you, Mira whispered. Let the pain remake you. The Velari shuddered. And for a moment the entire plaza dimmed as if the planet itself winced. In the silence that followed, a new presence entered. Larger. Older. Its body was fused into a gravity-suspended frame, its limbs replaced with flowing crystal tendrils. The high synapse. The last living node of the original Velari overmint. It had not been seen in centuries. It hovered in silence before Mira, and when it spoke, the air itself ran. You are incompatible. And yet incomplete. You are the beginning and the end of our LIE. Mira met its gaze. I'm not here to destroy you. I'm here to offer something. The synapse tilted. What? Choice. SHE extended her hand. Join the lattice. Not as conquerors. As equals. Share memory. Share pain. Reclaim what was lost. Or remain hollow. And die alone. The Velari recoiled. The offer wasn't a gift, it was a mirror. And in that mirror, they saw their extinction. Not through war. But through irrelevance. One of the delegates fell to his knees, whispering. Another wept without tears. The synapse hovered in silence. Then it spoke, you are dangerous. Because I remind you that power isn't a purpose. Because you cannot be controlled. Because I choose to feel. And with that, Mira pulsed once bright and resonant. The energy swept through the plaza. A wave of memory. Not attack. Not command. Just truth. The final day of a forgotten world. A child's scream before the harvest. A mother's last breath. A soldier's regret. A scientist's suicide after realizing the price of resonance. SHE showed them everything. And none of them were ready. The delegates collapsed. The synapse screamed a sound of cracking intellect, of a civilization forced to face the horror of its own myth. But they did not die. They broke. And in that breaking, something new formed. When Mira stepped back onto a shake, the entire crew could feel it, a shift. Not victory. Not peace. But possibility. Mira slumped into Leon's arms, exhausted but burning with calm. They began to remember. And you asked. SHE looked up at him, eyes dim but steady. I still remember you. Nyx stared at the planet as they launched back into orbit. What now? Mira whispered, now we find the others. The seeds. The forgotten echoes scattered across space. They rebuilt the lattice. Not as rulers. As keepers. And across the stars, ancient machines woke. Forgotten species stirred. Fractured alliances took notice. Because the echo had spoken. And in the silence that followed, hope returned. The calm after the storm was deceptive. Ashfake sailed through star systems that once hummed with life but now whispered only faint echoes of existence, spectral signals of civilizations fractured by the ascension core's collapse. Mira felt it deep in her marrow, the lattice inside her pulsing with restless energy, a chorus of fragmented memories searching for harmony. Yet, beneath that fragile hope, a shadow stirred. It had been dormant for eons, buried beneath layers of encrypted data and buried ruins, waiting for the perfect moment to awaken. It was no longer content to watch from the void. It called itself the null singularity, a concept born of pure negation, an entity that existed to consume resonance, to erase echoes and silence all memory. Its tendrils had seeped into the darkest corners of space, corrupting systems, bending minds, and twisting perception into paranoia and madness. Mira's dreams turned jagged, splintering with images of voids swallowing stars whole, of friends lost in blinding darkness, of Leon's face contorted in silent terror. The crew was not blind to the shift. Nix's tactical scans picked up anomalies, distortions in space-time where ships had vanished without a trace, clusters of ancient satellites corrupted beyond repair. It's spreading, SHE said grimly, fingers flying over the console. The null singularity is real. And it's hunting us. Mira's resonance flared, a sharp pulse that shook the ship's core. It knows I'm connected. If it destroys mistrzostwom Europy, the lattice collapses. Everything ends. Leon stood by her side, resolute. Then the fight. Whatever it takes. They had no choice. The null singularity was more than an enemy, it was the antithesis of all they sought to build. It fed on silence and oblivion, while Mira and her crew wove threads of memory and connection. The battle was not fought with missiles or lasers, but through the corridors of thought and data. Mira became a beacon, sending out waves of resonance to rally scattered allies. A forgotten species WHO had once been touched by the lattice's light, now hiding in shadow. They came on the ancient Drakari with their crystal claws, the telepathic crescents WHO could bend minds like metal, the enigmatic Orialis WHO lived between dimensions. Together they formed a fragile alliance, a constellation of hope against the encroaching dark. Yet the null singularity adapted with terrifying speed, corrupting minds, sowing distrust, turning allies against each other. Mira's own crew faced fractures, as transmissions began to flicker with unknown codes, Nyx grew harsher, colder, suspicious of even Leon. The fire inside Mira threatened to burn them all. In a desperate gamble, Mira entered the heart of the lattice, a psychic realm where thought shaped reality and time twisted like a river. There, SHE confronted the null singularity directly, a formless void that tried to erase her very essence. The battle was fierce and silent, a war of willpower and memory. Mira summoned every fragment of love, pain, and hope SHE carried. SHE reached into the depths of her connection with Leon, anchoring herself to the purest part of her humanity. With a cry that shattered the psychic plane, SHE unleashed a pulse of pure resonance, the echo of love that ripped through the void, fracturing the null singularity's form. But the victory came at a cost. The lattice inside Mira fractured, splintering into shards of light that scattered through her mind. SHE collapsed, gasping, "Goodbye, Leon. You saved us," HE whispered. "But you're breaking." Mira smiled weakly. "I'm still here. And as long as I am, the fight." Across the galaxy, systems once lost began to awaken, their memories rekindled by the pulse. The null singularity's advance was slowed, but it was not destroyed. It would return, hungry and relentless. But the fire kindled by a stolen love had ignited a blaze that even the darkest shadow could not extinguish. And in that blaze, humanity found its greatest strength, not in weapons or technology, but in the unbreakable bonds that made them more than just survivors. They were the echoes of a new dawn. The galaxy held its breath. The fragile web of memories, alliances and hopes spun by Mira and her crew stretched taut against the ever-looming threat of the null singularity's return. Time itself seemed to twist, a cosmic pendulum poised between annihilation and salvation. Mira lay in the medbay of the Eshfake, her body frail but her mind ablaze with the infinite echoes that coursed through her veins. The lattice inside her was broken, shards of light fragmented and flickering, but her spirit burned brighter than ever. Leon refused to leave her side, his hand clenched around hers as if holding back the darkness itself. "We're running out of time," Mira whispered, voice trembling yet resolute. "The null singularity will come back stronger. It feeds on doubt, on fear, on loss. If fall completely, the lattice dies. And with it, every hope we have." Around them, the Alliance gathered in orbit, a fleet of disparate ships from countless species, their hulls scarred but their resolve unyielding. Mira's voice reached out across the network, a beacon of light in the encroaching void. "We face this not as isolated sparks, but as a conflagration. Together, we will burn away the darkness." The plan was as desperate as it was brilliant, a coordinated strike deep into the null singularity's heart, using Mira as the living conduit to channel the full power of the lattice's fragmented light. It was a suicide mission and everyone knew it. Yet none faltered. As the fleet jumped into the null singularity's domain, reality itself twisted around them, stars blinked out, space folded like paper, and the silent scream of lost civilizations filled their minds. Mira stood on the bridge of Ashfake, glowing faintly, a radiant nexus of memory and hope. Leon took her hand. "Whatever happens, I love you." Mira smiled, tears of light spilling down her cheeks. "I always loved you." As they reached the core, the null singularity emerged, a swirling mass of pure oblivion, tendrils reaching out to snuff their light. Mira raised her hands, channeling the lattice's energy. The room flooded with colors unseen by mortal eyes, harmonies that resonated with the soul itself. SHE sang the song of the echo, the memories of love and loss, of pain and resilience, intertwined across the galaxy. The null singularity screamed, a soundless roar that threatened to unmake everything. But the lattice answered back, wave after wave of pure, unfiltered connection. In that final moment, Mira's body began to dissolve into light, fragments of her essence scattering across the stars, becoming the new nodes of the lattice. Leon caught her face in his hands. "No." But Mira shook her head, her voice now the voice of the entire lattice. "I am everywhere. In every memory, every spark of hope. This is not the end, it is the beginning." The null singularity faltered, pulled apart by the relentless tide of shared memory and love. It shrank, splintered, and finally collapsed into nothingness, a silent whisper lost in the void. The galaxy sighed in relief. But the cost was immeasurable. Mira was gone. Yet SHE was also everywhere, alive in every connection, every mind touched by the lattice. Leon stood alone beneath the stars, feeling her presence like a warm ember glowing in the cold night. "You were right," HE whispered. "Love isn't just a weakness. It's the fire that consumes darkness." The galaxy began to heal, scars mending as old wounds transformed into new beginnings. The Velari rebuilt their society, humbled and renewed. Other species joined the lattice, creating a network of shared existence that celebrated individuality and unity alike. And in every corner of space, the story of Mira and Leon, the man who lost his wife and the woman who became a galaxy's light, became legend. Because sometimes, love is the greatest weapon. And the flame that consumes can also be the flame that saves.